So what I'll do, so that we get an understanding of Amava heritage publishing, for those of us, or for those of those that don't know how it came about and who is behind it, Butemba is going to do that for us. And some of you might wonder why I keep on calling him Butemba. I met him about 9 years ago. He was part of a committee at CPUT. I was a student rep, and I caught his eye, and I actually asked for his business card. He didn't have a business card. He wrote it on a piece of paper, I kept it in my wallet. 2 years later, I was an intern in his office, and I showed him that piece of paper that I'd actually come to you 2 years before, and now I'm an intern. So he's actually introduced me quite a lot to the public relations industry as a whole. So it's really such a great honor for me to be here today and do this job. So Butemba, he's the founding director of Amava Heritage, an accomplished communications and marketing all-rounder, climbing the corporate ladder from being a communications and marketing operative to head of communications and marketing in various organizations like the Mercedes-Benz, Metropolitan Insurance, and he's also spent the past 12 years of his career at being the head of communications, marketing at the City of Cape Town, and now he's the founding member of Amava Heritage Publishing. And his experience and proficiency is in print media, reporting and writing, public relations, communication strategizing, and business leadership, marketing, and yeah, so his accolades actually also quite long as well. And he's received awards as a Manager of the Year for BMF finalist in 2007. He's also, under his leadership, he also received the PRISA Western Cape Region of the Year Award when we brought the prison awards for the first time, and the only time they've ever been outside of Joburg was when he was the chairperson. And also his professional and membership and business membership are with still with PRISA, the Black Management Forum, the Institute of Directors in Southern Africa. He's also a board member for the New Africa Bible Church, chair of the board for the New Africa Development Corporation, board chairperson for the Public Relations Industry Advisory Committee at CPUT, and also the board chair for the Dance for All. And some might not know, but he actually started off as a journalist, and that was in the 1990s for the Victoria East Reporter, which also covered Alice, Clay Drift, and Fort Bedford. So I'd like to welcome Butemba onto the pedal.
I'm happy that all of you made it today. I'm also happy that we are at this venue. We have done so many launches in bookish venues and academic venues. We have never been in a LANI venue like this. All my friends that are here today have asked me what has gone wrong with me. And I told them that when we do the vote of thanks, we will tell you who organized this. It is not us. We want to acknowledge the Decker family for their warmth. I was introduced to Jan first. Where's Jan?
Yes.
I was introduced to Jan first, and then Ingrid, and now I'm a member of that whole family. I've visited the house. I've never seen any of the kids in the house, only the parents. My mother is here, Mrs. Decker. She hosted me in her house in Tigande when we were busy negotiating this deal. And I took my wife there on the third occasion because they demanded to see her. And unlike all of you, when they saw my wife, they said, "Congratulations to have a man like this." Other friends, so-called friends, will always say when they see my wife, "Condolences. We feel for you." They did not behave like that. Thank you very much to the Decker family. And on the fourth occasion, I was asked by Ngosi Olomisa, who's our patron in the project, that he wants to meet Nicholas. On my next visit, I must take him to Tigana. I promised him that this will happen. We fixed the date. And when we called, we were told that he was buried last week. So he did not see. And I apologize. We had a great laugh with Nicholas. We had Jan told me how to deal with his father. He said, he barks, but don't run away. He will warm to you. Behind the back, he is the sweetest man. I saw that Jan later. Thank you for the advice. And as Ingrid was saying, he's a free spirit. I'm one free spirit. I attract a lot of free-spirited people. I don't fit in conventional places. He did not. When he hates you, he tells you that he hates you. When he likes you, he tells you that he likes you. There are many issues that are discussed between an author and a publisher about the work. Things that must be changed. That I had to pray before going to tell him that we must remove this. Because the first thing is going to be no. It's not going to happen. Please go away. So a publisher's life is to fight with his authors every day. Nicholas agreed to all the improvements and changes that we wanted to put in the book. The book had this format. This is a hardcover. This is going to be the Rolls-Royce level of the book that we package and sell as gifts. And then the title was MAQOMA'S Last War by Nicholas Birkenhead. He made another attempt, because this story was difficult to sell. He made another attempt to find the publishers to publish this book since 1995. And the story is explosive. Nobody wanted to touch it. So he self-published it under this heading, Singing of the Birkenhead. And he sold it under a house called Maritime Publishers. Then we came into the picture. We said we liked the original title, which said MAQOMA'S Last War. But we don't want to drop the Singing of the Birkenhead. So we ended up with an infusion of the two headings. We didn't change much in terms of the arrangement of the chapters and the research that he did. We changed the misspellings of the African names in the book, and then we tried to introduce a foreword, which he rejected. We still have the foreword. We will publish it in the website. It's www.amavaheritage.co.za. I got very now here. I miss him, and I will forever salute him. He dies with a lump in his throat, that he does not know what is wrong with the black government. When they have a story and a hero like this, they overlook him completely. That's MAQOMA. I wrote in the media statement, those who got it, that most authors that we have who are writing history, write history in a neutral position. This author is not neutral in the story. He has a side, and his side is that of the Xhosa, who were deprived by the British. in the 8th War of Dispossession, which in the Xhosa circles is known as the War of Mlanje, 1850 to 1853. I had talks with him, discussed his passion about MAQOMA, and now he found out that there is no way on earth that this ship found some difficulty with some weather in somewhere and somebody missed a point and then it went down. He was convinced that it was sabotaged. And then his first research question was, who stood to gain if this ship goes down? And that led him to MAQOMA and Hermanas Matros. This is the story. It's controversial because there is another story of the Birkenhead, which comes from survivors and historians, that says something contrary to what actually happened. So the reason other publishers did not want to touch the story, they did not want to fight with those historians who wants us to believe that the colonial force has never been defeated. It could never happen that a Xhosa chief can bring down a British naval ship like the Birkenhead. It never happens in history. So he stood against those people and published this one.
We've just been told of the character of the author of the book. He spoke his mind. Told that if he doesn't like you, he'll tell you. If he likes you, he will tell you. I think therefore it will help us if we follow that trend, at least during the course of this evening. What I know, I have come to know as I grow up, is that Africans tend not to appreciate what they have, especially when it comes to culture, language, religion, and so on. A number of the wars that were fought, we have, according to the history that has been given to us, had 9 Xhosa wars. They were variously called Kefa Wars, Frontier Wars, they also called there are several names that were Bantu Wars, Wars of Dispossession, and Wars of Resistance. And in a number of those wars, because they were fought in Xhosa land, MAQOMA played a big role. Indeed, he was what we could call a major general, because the general has to be main man, commander-in-chief, or who is the king. So he was never a king, even though he was the son of a king. So he had to be a major general. And he was able to lead the armies. If it were not for the fact that he was so rigid in terms of who's supposed to succeed a traditional leader, he could have well become the king of the Nika, of the Khachabe, because he had the capabilities, much more than his younger elder brother had, King Sandy. But because custom dictates as to who should be a successor to a traditional leader, so he couldn't have that position. But I want to believe that had that been allowed to happen, the course of history would have changed. Who could have thought that Xhosa out in the Wundus, in the hinterland of the Eastern Cape now, would be in a position to instigate and facilitate the sinking of a warship belonging to the mighty British. But he managed to do that, because within his interaction with the people, he had to interact with the Khoi, the Kalat, as they were called, as they are now called. He was able, as I say, to interact with the British officials. And in his interaction, he was able to get into the side of these people. Herman Matros, the one who was responsible for the actual execution of this plan, had been a Khoi leader whose mother was Xhosa, and he had been leading the armies of the Khoi people, settling in a piece of land called the Gad River, which was taken from Xhosa, particularly Amajin, MAQOMA'S own people, by the British, and given over to the Khoi, because the Khoi were prepared to fight on the side of the British against the Xhosa. But now when the British treacherous, as they tend to be, decided to go against the Khoi, took away their land and their animals, then Matros had to go to MAQOMA because he knew now that they had a common enemy. Now the knowledge that Matros could gain from his association with the British was the knowledge that MAQOMA was able to use in order to find out what it is that we can do in order to defeat the British. Because in their conversation, you realize that each time, in all of these wars, 9 Xhosa wars, as some call them, there were fatalities on both sides. But the British was able to send in reinforcements to ensure that in the next war that they were going to instigate against the Xhosa, they would have more officers. So he discovered that there was a shipyard in Liverpool, in Britain, England, where these ships were being made. And they were being modernized in order to ensure that they are able to withstand the conditions of the seas, and they were also faster in terms of moving to their destination. That's how then he was able to find a plan of sinking the Birkenhead, because he thought that by killing those soldiers who were being transported in this particular ship, then at least you would have some respite from the relentless attacks by the British. Now, in my view, the story of MAQOMA is much more potent, much more relevant than the stories of other kings in South Africa. You know that there are so many stories that have been written about the King Shaka or Mazulu. There are even films, movies are written about it, even photo stories are produced about it. But we know that, of course, he never actually engaged the British during his time because he was killed before he was able to have a serious interaction with the British. But we know that there's a battle that is often spoken about, the Battle of the Sandwana, which is a battle that is recorded as a battle that showed that even Africans are able at times to inflict harm and actually defeat the British armies. That was in 1879, recently. By 1879, we had long stopped having these wars with the British in Xhosa, because the last one was around 1873. Around 1873, 1877, yes. That was the last war that we fought. Then we decided that let's try and use the education and the religion that whites have given to try to engage the whites. So this is a book, therefore, this is a story that ought to be publicized, that ought to have movies. You see, when you read Western novels, how America, especially the United States of America, was won by the immigrants coming from Europe, you discover that there were a number of wars, even Western movies are there, that were fought between the indigenous people of America. They called themselves, they were called Red Indians by Columbus, as I understand. But they have their own names as tribal communities there. So in each war that they were fought and they were defeated, land was taken away. So the same thing happens. If we're talking about the 9 Xhosa wars, it means that the first war between the British and the Xhosa, when the Xhosa were defeated, land was taken. It was taken together with animals, especially cattle, and of course with people, because people were forced to work for the settlers and soldiers. And then in the second war, because these are wars, not battles, because a battle is a short skirmish between two opposing forces. A war, as you can see from the war from Langeni, it began in 1850 and ended in 1852, 53. which means that there's a lot of drama that took place there. And I know that the reason he requested me to be what he calls the keynote speaker is because he knows I like MAQOMA. He is my all-time favorite. Some years ago, even before I saw this book by Becker, when I became aware of MAQOMA, someone asked me in the newspaper, in the Daily Dispatch, who are your heroes, all-time heroes, living or dead? The first one, of course, is MAQOMA. I still maintain that he is my all-time hero because of the qualities that he has, because of the fact that he believed that our way of religion, of worshipping God, is not inferior to that of the other religions that are coming. We know that we all believe in God. When we venerate our ancestors, when we ask for blessings from them, we know that those blessings do not originate from them, but from the Creator, God. And when we do that, those of us who have participated in those rituals, we know how peaceful the atmosphere becomes when Onzoto are called together, call themselves together to come and perform those rituals. There's peace among them. But you look at the other religions, Christians are fighting each other. I think even in Ireland there's still no peace. There's peace, but there's tension. Christians, then of course you have the other religions, the Muslims. They are also killing each other because the others believe that the person under whom they call themselves behave in a particular way. So MAQOMA was able to engage the missionaries to understand them, but he remained convinced that their way of worshiping God was never in any way better or superior to theirs. In terms of the governance system itself, some people tend to say, to juxtapose traditional leadership with democracy. I don't know how many times I've been requested to come and speak in seminars and conferences, either by people who wanted to know or by people who knew the truth, but they wanted to discredit our position as traditional leaders. They say traditional leadership versus democracy, as if democracy is anathema to traditional leadership. And yet, outside the times of war, no traditional leader can take a decision arbitrarily without having consulted his councillors and even his people. Imbizo that we often get told about are the assemblies, the parliaments of the people, where each and every adult man at that time was in a position to go and participate. Then we have councillors that constitute the executive of the government of the time, who advise on a regular basis the traditional leader. So those characteristics still remain, but people are saying no, traditional leadership is an imposition. The kings of the past, someone wrote an article recently in the, I don't know whether it was the Sowetan or the City Press, Prince Machine. He loves, of course, bashing traditional leadership, and I don't know what he puts in this page. He says that traditional leadership was an imposition by those who lived in the past, because a person who was powerful would be able to conquer others and impose his rule over them, and then they decreed that from now on it will be my descendants who are going to be responsible. And he was saying, which is better, to be ruled by a fool that you have elected, or to be ruled by a fool that you have no say in his appointment to the position? So it looks like, yeah, of course, you don't want to be ruled by a fool.
You know, Themba, I like that you actually touched on quite a few subjects and a few themes. And one of the main themes, even from keynotes from Unkosi Olomisa, was on identity. And I'd like to see how we can elaborate what is the importance and the relevance of it, looking at the challenges that that we are facing, looking at what we have on television. We have all these things that we're shown that are American, that are European, and yet now you are bringing this book, these stories. And so, what is the importance of that book? And then for touching on identity and how people in this day and age, in 2018, the young people, even the older people, relate to this book. I think I'd like if you go see Golomisa or even you, Professor, can help to touch on that and see how we can build on it.
Our project is about trying to understand life before white people came.
I said it's a double-edged sword, the title of the book, because the institution of traditional leadership was used during apartheid times to divide our people, to make our people undermine their cultural identity. Because if you subscribe to that notion of separate development, it meant to the progressives that you are promoting this division of the African people so that whites can continue to subjugate them in the form of the homelands. No, the homelands were created in order to give the impression that that is where Africans belonged and that the rest of the 87% of South Africa belong to white people. If you go to Johannesburg, Cape Town, Durban, you are a visitor. You must have a pass and those kinds of things. So people therefore felt that the institution of traditional leadership is tainted with its association with apartheid, that it collaborated in the oppression of the people of South Africa, and therefore in a democratic South Africa it does not have a place. And yet the truth of the matter is that a traditional leader as an individual is a symbol of so many things. It's a symbol of unity, it's a symbol of peace, it's a symbol of justice, it's a symbol of development and everything else that is positive. So therefore, if you give traditional leaders a place in a democratic South Africa, as it is called, then you are going to enhance all of those values so that the whole of South Africa, the whole community is in a position to benefit. But now you are a political system of government, as all systems of government are. And the victors in the War of Liberation that culminated in the 1994 breakthrough are of the view that political power belongs to politicians, them alone. So what they've decided to do, they went to the union buildings where people, FW de Klerk and others used to stay, and other governors. They went to the parliament here in Cape Town, and yet they destroyed the institutions of traditional leadership that were there even before colonialism, during apartheid, and they still continue to exist, but they are not given the resources that they need so that they are in a position to use the attributes that the institution of traditional leaders have. As I said, symbols of unity, instruments of peace, weapons of justice, and all of those kinds of things. So it's a question of self-centeredness on the part of those who find themselves in positions of power. They are of the view that you cannot share the power with anybody else. Power, once you gain it, it must belong to you forever. That's why there are so many wars, conflicts, acts of violence amongst and within political parties themselves, because they all want to be leaders. They all want that power. Now, Robben Island, when I grew up in the villages down there in the Transkei, the island used to be known as the island of Nile. Nile Makanda is one of the war heroes in the wars of the frontier. The one who drowned here in the sea while trying to escape from Robben Island. But you can go to Robben Island to find out, even from the people who are curators there, if you like, where did Nile stay? I'm sure they wouldn't know. And then you ask about MAQOMA, one who was incarcerated 2 times. He was jailed for the first time, and he completed his term together with other traditional leaders, Okhokho, Fadana, and so on. Then he went home.
Because I thought that it would break the back of publishing these days. We have problems now. I have sent manuscripts that I thought are good manuscripts, but publishers refuse to publish them for one reason or another. So more publishers might help us. There is another problem that you are raising, and that's the problem with our department, especially the Department of Basic Education and the Department of Higher Education. These books are available. I have personally approached the people in these departments, begging them almost to say that here is an important book in history, why don't you prescribe this book? I don't know what happens, but no, what is also possible and what also happens is that some of these publishers go to these government officials, give them money that I cannot give them, and then the books are prescribed.
That's where the book touches different stories of our way of life, if I may put it that way. So what I'm saying is that it is very vital that people read in this book, because they're not going to find a specific thing about MAQOMA.
I love the fact that, you know, there is a legend and that a book has been written about a legend that I don't know very much about. And I went to a government school and I live in South Africa and I'm part of the economy, and I work in a company, and we try to support the economy by producing jobs and producing material that is published and unfortunately needs to be bought by a consumer. So just, you know, listening to the stories, I mean, there's so much incredible information here. But my feeling is if it's not packaged in an extremely accessible way, the story won't get told and it won't get traction.
Why is there no social debate here in the civil society about teaching history as a compulsory subject? You don't see that debate anywhere, really.
You need to be able to convince government to buy books and prescribe them, because they have a bigger pool. For example, in the libraries, the Eastern Cape government owns 209 libraries. Now, if each library has got, out of my 5 books published, has got 5 of each book, I'm fine. I can be able to go and afford that cost of translation. I can be able to go and afford another manuscript that will be brought to me. But if that does not unlock, we have a problem. Number 2, the other platforms. All our publishing contracts are not limited to publishing the book. It goes into other limited versions of the book, translations, film, documentaries and other things, because youth, the people who are writing to and the people that are our future consumers, may not want to read books but may want to read in other platforms. So we've started a digital department in our publishing house that advises us now on how do we package the books for the consumption of the fast-moving generation.
Nick was a character. Nick was a character. He was thorny. We've known him for many, many years. And we lost the whole concept of this book. The book was about the author. The author was a man that tried many things. He wrote many books. And I know this is political, but me for one, I just hope that we read the book. And through reading the book, we understand perhaps a little bit of the man and his life and the path that he traveled.
Ya mandithathe ithuba ndibulise kubo bonke abantu abalapha namhlanje. Silapha kwi-book launch okanye ke ekuphehlelelweni kwencwadi namhlanje, incwadi yakhe uMaqoma, the MAQOMA'S Last War. Incwadi ibaluleke kakhulu ngendlela engumangaliso kuba iqulathe imbali kubantu abamnyama nakuma-Afrika nje gabalala, kubantu abangayaziyo imbali yabo ngokweenkosi zabo. Yona nto ibaluleke kakhulu kanti ubana le ncwadi omnye wabantu bebekhona namhlanje ngokwizithethe bezikhona yintombi yakhe uNicholas Decker, kanti yena ngu-Ingrid Decker. Ngaphandle kwaloo nto bekukhona uNkosi uphathekile uRumisa kwaye kunye naye executive director ye-Amava Publishing Heritage Company. Ke libaluleke kakhulu namhlanje kuba abantu baninzi nje kakhulu bonakalisa umdla kwincwadi kaMaqoma.
Well, today was really an exciting moment to be part of a discussion on MAQOMA'S last war. And I think it was also a very important discussion. It touched on very important themes, especially one of identity, which continues to be such a challenge in what we're dealing with, as young people in South Africa. So, and I was also particularly interested in the subject of women, as we know that women empowerment still continues to be a battle. So, so I look forward to a continued discussion on the book and on the themes that it touches on, and also the other platforms that they're exploring, which I think will also be equally important in terms of how do you reach, the younger people, and who might not necessarily be interested in reading, but who might still be interested in the information.
Much as it is a significant history book, is not written in the style of an academic history book. It is written in his style, because he is himself. He is always claimed to be himself. And what I liked about this evening was that much as we had a very powerful story to tell, we had a very powerful panel, a very serious debate, the evening was a relaxed evening. It was in a relaxed atmosphere. We had the support of the family of the author more than ever before in our history as publishers. We also managed tonight to send the messages that we want to send to government and to the white community out there, to say this country and this story belongs to all of us. For all of us to benefit from it, all of us must invest in it. So, the significance of tonight is that we've launched a maritime story, a maritime book in a maritime city along the coast, in a maritime restaurant that is along the sea, on the Atlantic, overlooking the Robben Island, where MAQOMA was killed. The significance of the night is that Nick's book and Nick's idea and story has been immortalized, that it is starting to create a debate posthumously. That means after his death, we are talking about him, we are talking about his work. So that is exactly the same thing as I said in my presentation, that Amava Heritage Publishing's mission may not be achieved while I'm still alive. It may be achieved when I'm dead. Nicholas is looking on us now, saying the same thing, that what I agitated when I was still alive could not happen, and I gave up on it, but now is taking traction after my death. So that is the summation of tonight, that what we have achieved, we did not know, we never dreamt, even Nicholas never dreamt that you will have a panel that has a professor of, Professor Ntsebeza from UCT, of African Studies and Land Reform, that you will have in the panel royalty, Nkosi Patekile Holomisa, who also is in the cabinet as Deputy Minister of Labour, in the same panel. So, and most people here did not know what they were up for. They came for a simple or a normal book launch, but this was not a simple or a normal book launch?
Hey, I think I was a little bit overwhelmed by this evening of the turnout between all the various people that came tonight and what it would have meant for my father. That I think the big problem that my father had is actually not enough people read his book and not enough people criticized it. And I mean by criticize, it's not necessarily negative. It's just like give an opinion on the book, study it and just, give a critic. And I think tonight he would have been very pleased to have the panel of discussion between Themba and the professor that was there, as well as Mr. Olumisa, and I think he would really have been pleased that people could discuss it, and that it started just like from his book, that you then have a bigger, wider discussion, and I think that people interacted. So I think I was very pleased with that, and he would have been pleased with that too.